Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I want to first share that I hope you all see the new and updated intro, which I am very, very excited about. As you can see, we have done a little bit of remixing to it. Um, Oprah would be proud. So we are also really excited because I do have some upcoming news to share. I will be getting ready to share information about some advertising slots that we will have available for the intro and the outro, as well as some smaller advertising packages available for the across the screen trackers and tickers. So if you are interested in finding ways to promote your business, to share your business, this will be a great opportunity to do so with more than 7,000 or at this point 10,000 people in the network via Facebook, about 3,000 in my network via LinkedIn, and about 500 subscribers via Facebook. You have the opportunity to really connect your resources and your businesses with a bigger market. So I will be sharing information on it soon about how you can find yet another avenue to market your company. I am so excited for tonight's discussion because I am going to have the chance to talk with one of my favorite people. You know, we love conversations with the bestie.
Absolutely.
So, we have done several conversations before. Back when we first kicked off these conversations, she was one of the first and most frequent guests, not just because she's my best friend, but because she's really awesome at what she does, which is working as a social worker and mental health therapist, where she provides not only resources, but also mental health support services to people as we navigate these everyday journeys. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So, we definitely could not let this month pass without doing an annual conversation. I think this is our third mental health conversation since we kicked
Hmm.
off these conversations back during the pandemic, took a little bit of a break, and now we are back to bring these conversations forward to the community because there are so many things that we need to know about self-care, about wellness, about business building, about education, and about community. And so this year in particular, we are really facing some very different times. We have been through a lot of things, I would say, in the past decade. I don't think there's any denial of that. Navigating a pandemic, coming off of that pandemic, trying to recoup from that, and then entering what is one of the, I would say, most aggressive political eras where we're seeing a lot of changes. We're seeing a lot of financial challenges and situations. We're just seeing a lot of things happening. And one of the questions I've asked Alexis more than once is, what is your caseload like? Are you getting more calls than normal? Do you find that you are having different kinds of conversations with people? Like just, and to hear her say, things have definitely shifted in terms of what her community is in need of. And so I felt that if she's seeing it on her side, and I know I'm definitely seeing it in the community, it's important that we take time to talk about how to navigate our mental health and wellness during tense times, whether we're talking about the political spectrum or financial spectrum, or whether we're talking about family and social issues. It's important that we bring this conversation to the forefront and just very openly explore what are some practices we can put in place. What are some things we can do to take care of ourselves, and how do we navigate this time that we're in? We have a poll tonight. We've added that just to ask you questions about how you navigate your regular self care routine. And I'm just going to do a short introduction. Alexis is a native of DeRidder, Louisiana, has really lived in various communities throughout the state, as well as in Arkansas. She has worked with the U.S. military as a social worker for military families. She has worked for Children's Hospital with diabetes and HIV care for families. She has been in independent practice now for probably about 10 years. She's also worked with community nonprofit organizations, and she is also a mother of three. So she has worn several hats and navigated so many different roles that have allowed her to hone in on her expertise and really be a valuable aspect as it relates to not only mental health, but how do we navigate social services for people every day. And tonight she's here with us again to continue the conversation around how do we not only survive but thrive in 2026. Alexis, did I miss anything? Is there anything you want to add on?
No, I think you did a wonderful job of just really catching the whole grasp of everything that I've done in my career, which spans about 20 years, which is just wow because that has gone by so quickly, and been at the level of clinical licensure since 2013. So still a long time in practice. So yeah, I think you caught it all. Yeah, you did a great job.
20 years. Oh my gosh, that's such a long time for you.
Yes. 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 And still looking 20 after all.
Y'all, we have so many jokes now as we realize things like, oh my gosh, has it really been like 25 years since we graduated high school?
Yeah,
Have we really been
because I
working?
have a whole 20-year-old.
I'm
So
like, oh my gosh, Ren, it's so much. It's so much.
absolutely.
So we always love talking, cracking jokes about that, and just really coming to grips with time does pass quickly, right? But one thing that we try to be very intentional about is taking advantage of every day that we are giving to thrive, to grow, and to live in the fullness thereof. So I'm not going to waste any time because I don't want to hog all of your time tonight. But I do want to start off by talking about mental health and the social climate.
Mhm.
There is a lot going on right now here in the
Mhm.
state of, if we talk about Louisiana in general, if we just start with our state, we
Mhm.
have had the redistricting issue with our state and the big fight that's been there. We
Right.
have looked at the vote on amendments
Mhm.
and the push for people to say yay or nay, and what does it mean for your future if you vote one way or the other. From local communities, our community had a big, rather intense election. Up here in Northeast Louisiana, we're having a battleground over education. In other parts of the state, we're hearing the same thing as people are trying to figure out this redistricting map and what it means for representation. So, long story short, the stress level is high because in the midst of that,
Mhm.
people are still having to go to work, trying to figure out how to pay bills, just trying to figure out how to survive each day. So, my
Mhm.
question is, when we discuss mental health and the social climate, are there any similarities that you have noticed between where we are now and where we were a few years ago during the pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So during the pandemic, I think the thing that is very similar to what we're experiencing right now is that there was an undoubted sort of space that we had never navigated before. Um, it as a human race, we just had never navigated in modern history a pandemic, an illness where we didn't know how it would be treated. We didn't know if there would be something to treat it. We were, in complete disbelief that this could be happening in this modern day era. So I think the same thing has happened. And I think I lost you, Jamie.
I'm still
But
here, just my camera.
okay. I think the same thing has happened today, where if you think back to the beginning of 2025, during that particular election, well, 2024, during that election time, I think that people could not believe that we were going to be reliving a similar sort of regime. And so I have seen in my practice where clients are really just in a space of grief and disbelief, feeling like I really didn't feel like I was going to have to do this again. And so there has been a space where people have lost faith in humanity. Not to mention that with a shift in lots of government jobs, things that used to be foundational to our society in America, all of that shifted with the new administration, in particular, the administration that's in place right now. And so there are lots of similarities to the pandemic. Many people feel like they are reliving the normal that they thought they had come out of following the pandemic.
Ooh, ooh.
Hmm.
When you say the part about many people are reliving the normal that they thought they had come out of, I think
Hmm.
that's such an important line because um, I feel like for a lot of people, we've just when we felt like we were getting settled, just when
Mhm.
we felt like we were actually adapting to a change. Because no matter how much we tried to go back to, or we tried to reclaim what was before, I feel like one thing we definitely had to learn was that there was no turning back. Our only
Yeah.
objective was to figure out how to adjust to this new norm and how
Yeah.
to move forward. And kind of just as we feel like we got that under control, we feel like we finally got into the speed of things, we do see that there has been this kind of shift that has happened all of again, all
Yeah.
of a sudden, right?
Mhm.
Um, I like that. So
Yeah,
my
and that's
question, go ahead.
oh yeah, that's the topic of conversation with many of my clients is how do you allow yourself to essentially grieve the normal that you are continuing to
Mm,
try to get back to and
mm,
start to create a new
mm,
normal.
mm.
And also grieving the fact that we used to be able to depend on external factors to be the foundation, and that is just different now. Um,
Mm.
and so there's sort of a requirement now, a necessity to come into what are going to be my more internal foundations that I'm going to set up because there is such consistent or continuous rather change that's happening around.
I love that you said, how do I both grieve the history of that thing, but also work on moving forward or embracing what the present is right now? Because I think sometimes people really do feel as if we just have to get up, brush off, keep going. And
Mhm.
we find ourselves just performing because we actually are struggling to figure that part out. And
Right.
so that statement you said allows space for us to actually operate in the human, which
Mhm.
is that I can sit with the fact that things are different and that difference is impacting me, while
Mhm.
also having to figure out how do I still embrace where I am today and work on moving forward with that thing. So I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
So I wanted to kind of talk about, you kind of brought up a minute ago, the people that you're having to work with, but I really wanted to also talk about what it's like to be a mental health professional during this era. The unemployment rate is through the roof, especially as it relates to Black women. Our
Mhm.
unemployment rate is exceptionally high.
Mhm.
We are seeing a lot of people who also are seeing changes in their access to resources. So people
Mhm.
who are saying what was once covered for me, I don't have access to. So
Mhm.
I'm worried. I was listening to someone say the other day that they were talking to somebody who said that their copay for their medicine was once $25 and now it's
Mhm.
300 and something dollars. And so you all are taking in a lot of these conversations and a lot of these problems. And not only that, people that are also working in social services atmosphere feels where you're having to help people figure out how to get the food they need for their family, how to
Mhm.
get paid, how to find new jobs, just working in social services in general, where your goal is to help the public maintain a sense of stability. So my
Mhm.
question is to you, what is your recommendation for people who frequently work in social services or other public entities where your job is to really help people get their needs met right now?
Mm. So I think it's really important first and foremost for mental health professionals to be in a space of self-awareness with what their own bandwidth is, right? Because there
Mm,
is this thing called compassion fatigue.
mhm,
And it's not only just mental health professionals, I think it's helping professionals period, right? So we have, when I think about helping professionals, I think about social workers, I think about educators, I think about nurses, people in
mhm.
who work in the medical setting all together, right? So when we are in a place of providing services for people day in and day out, it can be very easy to blur the lines, if that makes sense. And so when I'm thinking about the mental health, from the mental health side of things, making sure that we're having balance, making sure that we are setting boundaries with our time, if at all possible, so that we are actually able to sow into the people that we are gifted to serve. And I think I lost you, Jamie.
Okay, I think I'm back. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Look, we've been shaky here. I told you about this laptop, but we also have had a lot of thunderstorms. So for just a minute,
Okay. No worries. No worries. No worries. No worries.
so awesome. I could actually hear what you were saying, but I could not
Okay.
reply.
No
So I
worries.
love
Yeah,
you.
I just noticed there was a disconnection. I said, okay, well, I think we lost each other, but that's all right. But I was just finishing up by saying, making sure that we're setting those boundaries, if at all possible, because if you are in a helping field, you are more than likely, it's more than likely that you feel called to be of service to others. So you can often give tirelessly of yourself, right? And not set those boundaries that are needed so that you can really sow into the people that you are here to serve. Something else that I just thought about when we were on a little bit of a connection break, right, was really being able to meet clients where they are, right? So we really are in this all together.
Yeah.
So just what you said about the differences in insurance prices and deductibles, right? I have had several clients who are like, listen, 2026, Alexis, my insurance has changed. I don't know that I will be able to still make as many visits. And
Yeah.
so I have talked with them about a sliding fee scale. What do we need to do? It's almost like, we know about Klarna and Afterpay. I kind of have implemented that for my practice, for
Yeah.
some of my, especially for my long-term clients who I know really need the support and need the services. And they are so appreciative of that. And so, we meet people where they are. That's really a part of what we are here to do as helping professionals. But we also, of course, have to make sure that we are taking care of us as well. So it's a constant balance. And so being in a space of awareness, something that we talked about was the polling question: what is your self-care practice? And I think it's really imperative for mental health professionals to have some type of self-care practice. And I know I've said this many times before when we have had other discussions, that we think about self care as getting our hair done, getting our nails done, going to the spa, going on a girls trip, and all of those things are wonderful, but they are not something that you're doing on a daily basis. So when we talk about nervous system regulation, you're waiting for months and months and months before you get some type of regulation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then going right back into all of the dysregulation. So
Mm-hmm.
when we're thinking about regulation, we want to start to embrace practices like deep breathing. We want to embrace practices like stretching, like movement, like walking. And something in particular for us in the Black community is connecting with our spiritual practices so that we are regulating our nervous system in a community environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Through church or other religious sort of assemblies, right? Because we are people who need movement. We need to be able to sing and to be able to calm that vagus nerve through those types of practices. So it's not a fluke that after you come from church, you're feeling pretty good. It's
Mm-hmm.
because you are actively engaged in communal nervous system regulation. So that's really important that as mental health professionals and helping professionals as alike, that we're engaging in some sort of self-care practice on a regular basis, in addition to the big things.
I think one of the things that I always talk about is one of the things the best things that I learned about self care is that it's a daily routine, it's an ongoing
Mhm.
lifestyle. And so, how you are setting up your daily schedule, how you are creating time for your own wellness, how you are preserving the longevity of your health is
Mhm.
really a big part of what actual self care is.
Right.
And I think that, especially when you start talking about working in a helping profession, we really struggle with that because we are compassion based people. And a lot of times, when we think of compassion, we think compassion means putting everybody else before you.
Right.
And
Right.
but I used to, what I love, what I always talk about, especially when I talk about educating wellness, I say, and then the problem becomes, I'm sorry, y'all, that when you feel burned out or you feel tired or you feel anxious, you really are not showing up as your best self.
Right.
or you find that you're agitated with people, or you
Mhm.
find that you are just burned out all the time, which leads to long-term health problems, both physically
Mhm.
and emotionally. So I
Mhm.
love that you
Mhm.
talk about, what healthcare actually is and how it should be showing up in how we care for
Mhm.
ourselves. And honestly, being realistic about the fact that as a working in a helping profession of any sort, it is normal that you may struggle with putting yourself first, but it has to be mandatory. It has to
Yeah.
be a part of ensuring that you can do quality work in whatever you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
that.
yeah, it has
I
to
love
be a priority. So I wanted to, as you were talking, I thought about two things. So the first thing is, let's go back to what you were talking about as far as Black women and the struggle that Black women are having with being underemployed, right?
it.
And so when we talk about Black women who are underemployed, who are single mothers, who are attempting to really, the candle is burning at two ends. Something that I had, right. You doing the work and you are the work. Like that's the thing as well. And so for us, when I'm talking to us, the conversation looks a little bit different than it does when I am talking with people from other walks of life or other ethnicities, right?
Absolutely.
I talk to us specifically about superwoman syndrome, right? And how we can give ourselves, how important it is to give ourselves permission to take off the
Mm-hmm.
cape,
Mm-hmm.
especially right now.
Mm-hmm.
And and also thinking about, like, because we're facing this underemployment, dilemma, not having enough to eat, not having or under, people who are underinsured, some of us are underinsured, thinking about how you can become creative about getting your needs met. So in Western society, not to go too far off the grid, we have been socialized to adopt a sort of individualistic sort of model and mindset, right, that aligns with capitalism, but that was never the model that helped us to thrive
Yes. Yeah.
historically.
Yeah.
And so really moving back towards the village in more than just one
You
aspect
know
of our
how I
life.
feel. You know how I
Yeah.
feel.
So,
Absolutely.
and that is very, personally, that's why I've made many of the decisions that I have made for myself, because you really need the support. It was never meant for us to do it all alone.
Nope.
And I'm really impressed when I look at social media, and I see that there are women, Black women, who are exchanging talents, right? So that they don't have to pay for both, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know how to do hair, you
Yes.
know how to do nails.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
let's
Mm-hmm.
let's 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 get this service done,
Mm-hmm.
right, at half the price, because you're good at this and I'm good at that, and I will even do your daughter's hair, or and you can do my daughter's nails, if they're of a
Yep.
certain age. So actually building and leaning into community, because that's particularly important for Black women to offset costs, because let's be honest, we can't do anything, right, to address the systemic issues of employment right now, right? So being creative, as we always are.
So first of all, I 100% agree with that, because that is the cornerstone of how we've been able to survive for a long time, and we get this mindset that, oh, we have all the pieces, and I'm speaking from definitely a personal place.
Mhm,
We have all
mhm,
the pieces. We should be able to make the magic happen alone, and sometimes the obstacles that we will face will be bigger than ourselves.
mhm,
Bottom line.
mhm,
And I'm gonna
mhm,
get real personal, and friend, I'm a rather private person, but I don't feel like the piece about us circling back around to the pandemic is by accident. And I remember that during the pandemic, for me, I was in crisis mode
sure.
because I had just gotten injured. I was out of
Mhm,
the classroom. I had lost my job because they terminated me because I was sick and could not come back. I was
mhm.
going through a lot of fights trying to get what I deserved. It was one of the most challenging times ever. And
Right,
I
right.
remember that when you talk about taking the cape off,
Mhm,
I remember that I felt so embarrassed
mhm,
and so weak to go and get government assistance.
mhm. Mhm.
because I didn't have money to put food on the table.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
was sick and I was hurting and we were in a pandemic. Because in my
Right.
mind, I never thought I would be in that situation again. I work hard, I have my education. I've been very committed to what I do and I show up all the time. And in
Mhm.
our mind, especially as Black women, we feel like if we are doing all the things that are right, then there's nothing in life that's gonna fail us. But
Right.
sometimes there are just bigger things at play that do impact our lives.
For sure.
And we cannot be beyond figuring out what we need to survive
Yeah.
and going to get it.
It's okay to pivot. It's
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 okay.
always okay to pivot. And I think that like what the pandemic has done and also what this time that is mimicking the pandemic has done, it's ushered in the opportunity. I like to use that word with clients, right? So instead of looking at it as a challenge, can we reframe that and look at it as an opportunity for us to pivot into what it is that we're supposed to be doing now? What's going to work better for us now, reframe, just continuously allowing it to evolve however it needs to evolve. And so when I have this conversation about superwoman schema or superwoman syndrome with Black women, it hits the nail on the head
Mhm.
every time the person that's sitting on the other side of that screen from me or in front of me feel seen, and you can tell they become broken open, right? Because
Mhm.
nobody has ever given them the permission to take off that cape, or they haven't given themselves permission to take off the cape in a way that would allow them to welcome in the support that they need. And that's
And
so
you
big.
and you don't have to look for anybody. Sometimes the trouble with us is we're like, well, if I don't wear the cape, who's gonna wear the cape? Girl,
Yeah,
nobody. That's the
yeah,
problem. That's the
yeah,
problem
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. But
Nobody's
here's
gonna wear
yeah.
the cape.
And here's
Throw
the
the cape
deal.
in the
This
washer
this
and go sit down somewhere.
let me tell you. So this is the problem, and you know where I'm about to go, or you may know. So
Mhm.
historically, we have not
Mhm.
had permission to take off the cape,
Mhm.
and we have
Mhm.
been conditioned and socialized, right, that we have to be 10 times
Busy.
better, right? 10 times smarter. We have to be polished at all times. We have to adhere to this perfectionistic mindset so that we will be perceived as, oh, okay, then they can do it since they perfect. Which that's not a sustainable model. It's never been a
And
sustainable model, but it
it's
was
never.
what was safe. Black women did not have, and I'll say Black people did not have the luxury of being in a space where they could be less than perfect, because that did not allow survival. And so that has, when we talk about epigenetics, that's how it's showing up still today. Even though we can take off the cape now, you know, it still doesn't feel like it. It
and
still does
and
not feel safe to
and there's
welcome
a
in
lot
a
and
different reality.
I'm sorry. And there tends to be a lot of fear attached to that because of there is a reality that things may look different. There
Yeah.
is a reality that there may be a challenge. We
Mhm.
have still been conditioned to believe that if that we can work that challenge out the way.
Mhm.
And having to sit with the fact that sometimes you won't be able to work that challenge out the way. And even
Yeah.
historically, for women, Black women, and men, we were never able to work that challenge out the way.
Mhm.
No matter how
Mhm.
much we tried to prove things, there was still yet another obstacle. No matter how
Yeah.
many times we defied the odds, there was still another something else that would be put in our way.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
still very much so present at this moment, right?
For sure.
Part of the reason that we see a lot of things manifesting that we do are this repetition of history is because of the fact that you actually have proven that you can. So,
Mhm.
because of this, that we realize it's going to exist regardless of how much you work and regardless of where you are, you may as well choose your own survival and wellness so that you can thrive in any season that you have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
you
and
may as well
and
choose your own wellness.
yeah, that's the part that I believe that when people get to the point where they're ready to receive intervention, right? That's the point they want to get to. But the brain is such a powerful thing, right? And so, because we practiced these other patterns for so long, even though we desire a new reality, it requires the practice to be put in place in order for us to lean into it. So, there, we're circling back to the practice because we're now connecting with the body in a way that's allowing us to say, I can release that old narrative, I can release that old practiced pattern and lean into a new one. But a lot of people get frustrated. It's like, I'm still wanting to do the old thing. Yes, you're gonna want to do the
You're
old
gonna want to
thing
do it.
because your brain is still programmed for the old stuff. It does not mean that you cannot do a new thing, if that
And,
makes
and
sense.
so, and literally, right? So, this is
Hmm.
one of our favorite conversations, and we could go on this all night, right?
Oh, for
So,
sure.
the work of epigenetics is that it does literally rewire the brain,
Oh,
how
for
it
sure.
works, how you perceive things. It changes the chemical makeup of the body. It
Yeah.
changes your DNA. So, in order to undo that, so I think the study I shared a while back is like it takes like 11 generations or 7 generations for every
Hmm.
one generation to undo that damage. So just as you cannot imagine, if I say we've been in the US now for 10 generations, that's 10 generations of uninterrupted exposed trauma. And so
Hmm.
reversing any of those practices does take practice, and it takes
Hmm.
patience with yourself, and it
Absolutely.
takes resetting, it takes restarting. I talk about that now, like in everything, it takes you being able to restart as many times as you need to. And with
Mm.
each time that you press restart, you're able to try to become better each day. You're able to try to become better at doing it. And the periods of time that you're able to sustain become longer and longer. And
Yeah.
honestly, you begin the healing process. But if we don't step into that era of healing, if we don't step into that 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 time to pause ourselves, then we really do pass on that next generation of
Yeah.
trauma to
Yeah.
our children or to whoever's under our tutelage or our influence.
Yeah.
We do. We
Yeah,
really, really,
you don't gain the traction that you need.
yeah.
And that's the conversation that I have with both, with everyone that I'm gifted to see, is when you have generational trauma work to do, like you are breaking generational trauma patterns, it is in the smallest of things where
Mm-hmm.
the difference is made. It
Mm-hmm.
is in the smallest of your actions that the difference is made. Um, you know, t- not blowing up when you used to blow up, you know, making a decision that, even though this is what historically has been done within my family, I am going to take a different path. And it can be very lonely. And that's also where the work,
Mm-hmm.
we talk about building community. It's really important for us to be invested in that, because community will sustain you. And many times the reason that we go back into patterns as well is because we have we have not built a community that will help to sustain us, if that makes sense, right?
One of the
it,
things.
even
Oh,
even with drug use, like people will fall back into habits because those were my people. I wasn't just using by myself. I was using with the people that
that was the
I
community.
was
That was the
connected to.
community.
Now I
That
have to not only lose my coping strategy, but I have to lose the people that I was using with.
that was a community too. That was
That's right.
that was a
Right.
community too.
That's right.
It was a
Right.
community too. One of the things that I always enjoy talking, and I share with people frequently, when we just talk about all of these different things and ongoing work, but I share with people all the time. I'm like, one of the biggest benefits for me is being, I was like, me and my best friend and our friends, like we literally, in my opinion, have done a lot of our growing on this journey together. From
Hmm.
how we raise our kids. It's always a conversation between us, to family life, to parent life, to our own personal journeys. Like
Right.
we talk so much about that. We are our sisterhood community for what we
Right.
aspire to be, and that gives way to that continual growth. And community circles are my greatest passion in developing those
Yeah.
programs around that.
Mhm.
But it's because of that very thing. Like, if we do not find our circle among people who are sharing that vision for that place we're trying to arrive to,
Mhm.
very what you said is true. Not only can it be lonely, but it is hard,
It
because
is.
even staying motivated,
Mhm.
staying optimistic about the future, because
Mhm.
changing and evolving is not an easy thing.
No, it's
It's
not.
not an easy journey, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take some time. And so you have to have people that also say, we are in this together. We can do this
Yeah.
together. I see you
Mhm.
and I cheer you on in order for us
Absolutely.
to be able to evolve into that place we're trying to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, just to kind of add on to that, when we think about community, many times people have not had any sort of practice with having to build community outside, especially if they've been in the place that they lived for their whole lives,
Mm-hmm.
or they only
Mm-hmm.
lived one other place, or they're maybe more introverted. So
Mm-hmm.
that work can be particularly
Mm-hmm.
challenging. So a lot of the things that I talk about with clients is, okay, let's brainstorm how you can build out community, right? Because maybe your best friend sister circle, your boys, they are not there within a close proximity to you. So what are the things that you enjoy doing that maybe you have steered away from because of anxiety or depression? How can you reconnect with them in a more creative
Absolutely.
way, right? So that
Absolutely.
you have what's called, so this is what I do with clients. I ask them to think about a circle of support. So you have a circle of support, and that circle of support includes or looks like a bullseye, or an egg with an extra rung around it. Okay, if you can envision that. And so
Break
on
out
your,
the thinking maps, y'all.
yeah. So on that innermost circle are the people that you have the closest relationship with, right? These are the people that you would actually tell your deepest, darkest secrets, right? They know everything about you. They're gonna ride or die for you. That's your people, okay? Now on that outer ring, you might have some people that you go to karaoke with, but you wouldn't tell them your deepest, darkest secret. You
Y'all have
might
fun together,
attend
but
yoga with them,
yeah,
you
yeah,
you might catch a game with them, I don't know. That would be that outer circle, that the
yeah,
second circle on that circle of support. And then on the last rung of our bullseye circular sort of model would be your community resources. Okay,
yeah.
so that would be like me, right? As your therapist, that might be your primary care physician. That might be your church if you have a loose relationship with your church. And see, this is why this is a good sort of tool to use with clients, because everyone will have an individual circle of support. Your church family might be on the second circle for you, but for somebody else, if they attend a mega church or something like that, then it might be on the third one. And so that can be something that can be very helpful when we are exploring how you can build out your community so that you're less likely to relapse, or less likely to continue to stay in depression, or less likely to stay in anxiety spirals, right? Because now, in addition to building out your personal practice, you're intentionally building out your circle of support.
I think it's also really important too to understand where you stand with people, because sometimes when we have not have the chance to like sit down and evaluate that,
Hmm.
we also misconstrue who's in our inner circle versus who is in our outer circle, and we
True.
don't really have an idea of what community actually is.
Yeah.
And so whenever I think of that as well, it's like you also need to have a very clear definition of who you can call on for what thing, or
Hmm.
just to evaluate your level of comfort with certain
Yeah.
people and certain information.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes I think we don't always, because if we're in auto mode all the time or we're in go mode all the time, sometimes you don't think about it. And many
Hmm.
times either you keep information private, or you crash and burn and you just spill to anybody, and
Right.
that not because you trust them, but because you're in survival mode. And so
Right.
by building that community out, like you're talking about, having a strategy for understanding what your circle looks like, to me, it also gives you a plan and a healthier spectrum for knowing how you can maintain that health and not
Yeah.
crash and burn anymore,
Right.
not always
Right.
be in survival mode, or
Hmm.
not just get in this situation where you stay on autopilot until you crash and then you blowing out. The chick you sit next to in church, you tell her all kind of stuff, and she like, "Oh, sis, I didn't know you like
Right.
that."
Right. In a space of emotional dumping,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
we
We
don't.
just
Yeah.
passed each other pieces of gum, sis. I wasn't ready.
Right. I wasn't ready. I didn't have the capacity. But here's the piece, like that's absolutely true. And we use this tool as a tool that's ongoing, right? It's an ongoing tool that we're going to use. It's not one and done. So when we're looking at setting goals, right? Because when I'm with a client, we're going to set goals and then we're going to come back to see if you've met those goals. The tool of with circles of support is something that we're going to continuously reassess to see if the people that were on that inner circle are still there, or have they moved out and somebody else has been put on that inner circle. Has somebody completely fallen off? Because that's also a topic of discussion for us. That's something that we can talk about, and what happened and how that maybe impacted your trust level, right? And how you want to continue to build community. Because many times, if your trust is broken with somebody who's in your inner circle, we
Yes.
we very well may be starting over from the very
Yeah.
beginning. But that's okay. That's totally okay as well. And that's something that is a focus of therapy as well, is if we have to start over, that's okay. So an example that I give to clients is, if you're on your way to your favorite concert, you're on the way to see Beyonce, and then they have a traffic jam on the way there. Okay. Are you going to take the nearest exit and go back home? Or are you going to take the offer detour and get to the concert? Most people would say, I'm going to take the detour and I'm going to get to the concert, right? So we oftentimes will go home on our goals and our dreams versus just taking the detour.
Yeah.
Just because there's been a change or a challenge, that does not mean that all is lost. And so
Yeah.
a lot of that, a lot of this conversation is a part of what we talk about in therapy, and how you can really work through the challenges so that you're not constantly feeling like, I cannot attain that goal. No, we will have challenges. So it's a
Yeah.
whole perspective shift.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
will have challenges. It's not about expecting that you won't. It's like, how can I navigate the challenges when they come? Because they will.
How can I navigate? I like that.
Hmm.
I love that. So let's pivot or just slightly curve to the right
Hmm.
for a minute.
Hmm.
I wanted to talk about the work of our social activists. So we just talked about social services. We talked
Okay.
about the Black women in the Cape. Social activism. Really, really, really big subject right now because we have so much political and civil unrest like we haven't seen in a long time.
Hmm.
And, oddly, I feel like interestingly enough, I don't know how I got up in this realm of community, but I've been working a lot with national politicians, state politicians, local
Hmm.
politicians, and sitting in on just a lot of listening. And the amount of stress,
Mm.
the constant impact of change, this pivot, show up here, show up there. The demand of such a profession is tremendous.
Hmm.
But there's this push also that everybody feels like you got to say something. You got to be in on the conversation. You got to be a participant in the activist. If not, how are people perceiving you? Right? So
Hmm.
my question is, currently there's this big push to be socially involved and to be social activists. What do you say to people who feel caught between self-preservation and activism? They're just trying to figure out, how do I navigate both of these responsibilities? And in a sense, may feel some type of guilt if they are not showing
Yeah.
up the way that they feel the world is pressuring them to. What do
Yeah.
you say to those people?
So I have this conversation very often, especially in 2025. I had this conversation a lot because people felt like I did what I was supposed to do. I actually voted, and I actually voted for the candidate that I felt like would be best for this country. And it didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to. And now I'm having to pay the price for other people's choices. So I've had this conversation. So I think it becomes in therapy, we talk a lot about cognitive distortions. So what you just referenced, um, in reference to being a social activist, or not saying anything at all, right? Like that's all or nothing thinking. So if we're in a space of either I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna go hard, or I'm not gonna do anything at all, well, that leaves a whole lot of playing field, right? And so there are many other ways that we can show up outside of just going hard in social activism or not doing anything at all. Um, and the conversation that I have is allowing yourself to explore how you can be the most effective in the way that you feel called, right? So maybe it is being involved in voter registration, right? So that more people have access to voting. Maybe it's that you're being a part of your party's call system, where you're reaching out and you're making cold calls, or you're sending texts, or you're going to the actual place of polling. If you can volunteer there, maybe you are taking not the I am out and I am on social media and I am being that person that is the activist, but I'm more the behind the scenes person, and I'm being consistent from that particular perspective. And it doesn't mean that it's just on the national level. It can be on the local level. It could be on the state level. You're now attending city council meetings. You're now attending school board meetings, right? So you're allowing your voice to be heard in different ways, so that not only are you affecting change locally, but also if you have children, you have nieces, you have nephews, you have neighbors, you're also modeling how you should best show up,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And that goes such a long way.
One of the things that I absolutely, as a person that has always been very socially active, like
Mm-hmm.
loved it. As I got older, of course, and became a mom and became a full-time entrepreneur, I was like, there are so many hats to wear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just studying my history and ancestors and hearing people sometimes say things like, um, well, I couldn't have stayed, I would have ran, or those are people Harry would have left behind. A lot of those types of
Mm-hmm.
comments. And I remember the day I sat back and I said, sometimes survival is activism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes survival in and of itself is your
Mm-hmm.
activism.
Mm-hmm.
And we have gotten performitude and activism confused.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not able to have your heart in it, if you're not able to show up as 100%, or if you're exhausting yourself or being a threat to your physical and mental health, right? What is
Mm-hmm.
the real benefit of the type of activism you're displaying if it's
Right.
detrimental to your own future,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
And I
Mm-hmm.
remember thinking to myself, like, sometimes your activism is just in your own survival.
Mm-hmm.
Maintaining a job in a space where you are carving out opportunities for others. You are
Mm-hmm.
holding the line for people so that when the tide does shift, right, you can bring in those next professionals.
Yeah.
Standing up and
Mm-hmm.
advocating for yourself in certain spaces, even if it's just you fighting for yourself in that moment, so that
Mm-hmm.
somebody else doesn't have to go through the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I like what you said when you talked about it doesn't always have to look like a national thing, because that's more of the thing, in my opinion, that has been conditioned into us by our exposure to social media
Social media.
and
Yeah,
social
for
services,
sure.
right? I
Mm-hmm.
always say, well, keeping up with the Joneses used to just be the people on your street. Now
Mm-hmm.
keeping up with the Joneses is the
You trying to
internet.
keep up with everybody across the nation,
And
internationally.
honey, how
Yeah,
are we gonna do?
yeah,
How are we gonna do
yeah.
it, friend? How are
It's
we gonna
not
do it? That's a lot.
sustainable. It
It's
is
a lot.
not sustainable. Yeah.
It's not. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also not good, because if we get so hooked into what is just performative, where's real activism having place?
Right.
And is it actually sustainable? So I love, that you said that. Hello. Oh, look, we have Dr. Butler. You all, thank you, Dr. Butler.
Awesome.
Yay. Dr. Butler works
I'm
a
so
tight
sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's
My deepest
okay.
apologies.
It's okay. We are so happy he is here as well. And perfect timing to keep this conversation going. So Dr. Butler, we're going to take a moment and just let you give a quick rundown of what you do as a licensed therapist and pastor. And then I'm going to swing on to the next question, where we're actually talking about social activists and activism and mental health. So go ahead and kick off with just giving us the rundown on your work as a mental health therapist and pastor, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you, Jamie, so much for having me. I'm a licensed mental health professional. I've been doing that for about 21 years. I have a private practice here in Shreveport, Louisiana. I do a host of other things, consulting, training, all types of things. And my specialty and my passion is mental health, in particular, working with individuals who have what we would call SMDs or serious mental health disorders. I'm also a pastor. I've been pastoring now for about 15 years alongside my wife. The name of our ministry is called Dream Big Leadership Church. And I'm excited to be here today.
Yay. I'm so happy to have, and I have to also share this. They are both Gremlinites, okay? So for the
Yes.
GSU community,
Yes.
the quality of mental health professionals and social workers that you guys have brought forward is absolutely
Absolutely.
phenomenal. They are two of my favorite people to talk to when it comes to community engagement, mental health, and community support. So I'm glad we can keep this conversation moving. What we were talking about, Dr. Butler, third therapist Young and I were discussing um, is this rise of social activism and where we are right now in terms of the political climate and even the push that we have by society for everybody to show up as an activist. What's your stance? What do you stand for? Are you marching? Are you at the voting polls? Are you so this push that people really feel to show up in a certain way in this type of climate? And we were just talking about, what advice do you have for people who feel caught between self-preservation and activism? And so I want to go to the next question so you can talk about that one, but I want to go ahead and throw you out the next question as well, which says, so for our activists, we're talking about politicians, NAACP leaders, those people who are marching, those who are testifying in Supreme Courts, those who are filing lawsuits, and those who are active advocates on social media. What is your advice for those social advocates and political leaders who experience high levels of stress and frequently encounter trauma as a result of this type of work? What kind of advice do you have for those people who are boots on the ground with this work every day?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think number one, you got to take care of yourself. In our profession, we always advocate having a self-care plan. And I know sometimes that can be countercultural and counterintuitive, even, to the work that we do. Because in the social services arena, period, the helping profession, whether you're a teacher, social worker, counselor, it doesn't matter. Whether you're in the community working, you get accolades for sacrifice. It's almost as though you get rewarded for being a martyr, and
Mhm.
people can almost shame you if you are not sacrificing some of your emotional and physical health for the
Mhm.
cause. And so there's a reason that when you get on an airplane, the stewardess says, in case this plane goes down, you need to
Mhm.
put your oxygen mask on first so that you can be in the right state of mind physically to be able to help the people that you love. I think the
Mhm.
same thing is true, whether you're an activist, counselor, social worker, it doesn't matter. I mean, you got to take care of yourself first.
Mhm.
It's nobody's responsibility to take care of you first but you. It's not selfish to prioritize yourself. It's actually selfless. If you really care about the people that you love, you're going to make sure that you're the best version of yourself for whatever meeting, organization, community, institution that you have to show up for. You can't pour from an empty cup. I tell people sometimes you got to redefine relationships that you may be in. If you're with people who don't support you prioritizing, you taking care of yourself, you don't have people around you saying, man, take a break, take a vacation, take some time off. If you got people that's around you that are like that, either they're uneducated or they're really not your friends. It
Mhm.
takes a lot to do this work. I'm the president of the Association of Black Social Workers. There's always a cause, um, but we're only as strong as um, you know the person that's in the organization who needs the most help. And biblically, the Bible says that we ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. So I would tell people, man, have a a self-care plan. That ain't just getting your toes and your nails done. That's a part of it.
Look,
You know,
Alexis just talked
hey,
about
I'm with that.
that.
We're on the
I'm
same
with that.
page.
Yeah, I'm with that. But there's other. You got to take care of your mind. You only get one, and when you lose it, you don't get it back. So you got to take care of your mind as well. So I hope that answers your question.
Alexis, what would you say as well? What is your advice for the social advocates and our political leaders who are encountering these high levels of stress and frequently engaged in, traumatic experiences?
So I think it's very similar to what we talked about earlier in the conversation, Jamie, in regards to helping professionals, right? And so we talked about mental health professionals, we talked about our medical health professionals, educators. I think that we can also group activists into that particular focus as well. Why? Because there's an outpouring of themselves without any limits.
Mm,
And so without any, without any limits, then people feel like they should have access, unlimited access to that person, especially if they are a person who is advocating for the people, right? And so it can be important to set those firm boundaries, just as we talked about with the other helping professionals, right? And making sure that that community is built out. Making sure that when you are on vacation or when you are off, you are actually off. You are actually on vacation. Making sure that you have a good team around you, as Dr. Butler said, that is reinforcing the actual refueling that you need in order to do this work. Because so many times I believe that activists have people around them that, yes, love them and see the vision that they have, but they also have some yes folks around them that may nudge them to do things that are beyond what they have the capacity to do at a certain point. And that does not allow for them to be the effective leaders that they were called to be.
Yes. I
So,
love that.
yeah.
I was talking to one of my friends this morning that's doing some political work, and she's working on a national spectrum. And as soon as I heard her say, she had to take some time last time to get some rest, last week to get rest.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about, could we loop in on a three-way call? I said, we can loop in however you need to so that we can make this one call and be out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me as a person that does some activism work, but has also had to encounter people that do a lot of activism work. I know I try my best to figure out how can I reach you efficiently and minimize the amount of your time that I demand. And I think that that's a role that we also have to have as the community. Sometimes, what you all said is we expect a lot of people who are servants of the community. And I say that even as a person that works as a consultant and really just has a strong community platform, that I encounter that all the time. And because I understand it, I definitely try to figure out, okay, how do I maximize opportunities with this person? How do I respect their time? And how do I also show concern for their well-being? Dr. Butler, when you said something a minute ago about religion and sacrifice, right? That instantly made me go to the fact that many times those mindsets do tie into religion for our community as well. Because we think that everybody is supposed to make the same level without saying it, we think that everybody is supposed to make the same level of sacrifice that Jesus made. And
Martyrdom.
even if
Martyrdom was
yeah,
murder.
and even if we think about like our structure in the churches, right? Most of
Mhm.
our songs, the precious Lamb of God. Not to say these songs aren't good and they don't move us, but the precious Lamb of God, He sacrificed. Like they're all rooted in there. They're not even necessarily versus some spaces where we're all praise and worship. Thank you, Lord. We're here. We're in abundance. But if you really think about the history of our religion, a lot of them are rooted in even that sacrificial mindset. And I remember God telling me one day, I already paid the price, so there is no need for you to self-sacrifice. And I feel like, even in what you all are talking about now with our people who are public figures, to a certain extent, we do attach some of those levels of religious demands to them without realizing that there is not a responsibility for them to be a sacrificial lamb for us. So what did y'all have any thoughts about that? That's just what came to my mind as I was listening to you all talk.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
I
So I
agree.
wanted us to kind of talk about, so as we go to social activism is also tied to social media.
Mhm.
And, Alexis, you and I talk about this all the time, which is the impact that social media has on the everyday lives of people. And I don't feel like we explore that conversation enough. The
Mhm.
addiction we have to that phone being in our hands, um, and how the social media, because it operates in what we deem to be real time, often
Mhm.
arises to me a higher level of insecurity and even competition among us. And so
Mhm.
there have been a lot of studies around how social media increases anxiety, how it has impacted depression in people, and not just our kids. We talk about it a lot with kids, but I think that we really don't talk about how it shows up in adults as well. So my
Mhm.
question is, social media keeps a lot of us informed, but it can also increase anxiety, anger, and emotional exhaustion. What are some healthy ways that we can stay informed? Because a lot of times we rely on that, the live streams, we're watching CNN, we're looking for that content creator who's an advocate to give us on the ground news and all those things. So, how can we balance being informed with also not being emotionally consumed by social media?
Mhm. So I will say, I'll just jump in and say that our phones are wonderful tools, but we were never meant to have the onslaught of social media, notifications that we have. That's why our nervous systems, that's a part of why, it's not the whole reason why, but that's a part of why our nervous systems are so dysregulated, because every time you have a ping on your phone and you look over and it's from a news outlet, or it's somebody that that's texting you about, girl, I gotta tell you, man, I gotta tell you, your body reacts to that information. So we were never supposed to be exposed to this much stimuli, external stimuli, for one. And so because that's the case, uh being able to really identify how you can curtail how many notifications that you're getting. You know, you can go into settings and you can actually say, okay, this is going to be some downtime for me with my phone. If you're getting ready to go to sleep at night, okay, I don't have access to these apps after this certain time, right? I'm gonna give the password to somebody else so that I actually have to adhere to this. So actively implementing some discipline with the use of your phone so that it is aiding you in the way that you want it to aid you, but not contributing to that dopamine chase that we go on unintentionally, because it's easy access and the brain is like, we know what to make us feel better, we can just scroll mindlessly.
Next thing
So
you know, it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
yeah, and here we are. I'm still looking at this phone. So yeah, so being intentional with the use of your phone through some of the using the settings that are actually there, we just have to use them, to help us to have more appropriate intentional use with our devices.
I love it. Dr. Butler, did you have
Yeah.
any?
No, what Alexis said was profound. I definitely agree. Um, just to be honest, social media isn't going anywhere. Cell phones aren't going anywhere. Um, we have a generation of individuals who never had a day without a cell phone. Like I grew up in the '80s, so I remember when there was pay phones and dial up phones. I
Mhm.
remember that. But we do have a generation of individuals who using their phone is just as regular as brushing their teeth. So I think trying to get rid of that as a part of the way that they function on a daily basis, I think that's a losing battle. I
Mhm.
think we have to teach people how to think,
Mm, mhm.
in particular, to think about how we use information. I think we also have to teach people how to think, how we access information.
Mhm.
And I think we also have to teach people to think critically about their identity, that the devices that they have in their hand, the outlets that they have that are social media, are supplementary. They're not the foundational part of who they are as human beings. I think if we lose that battle where individuals are using these tools as an extension of their identity or as an extension of the way that they've become critical thinkers, right? I think that's when it becomes problematic. We're in a generation now where we had to remember everybody's phone number when I was growing up. We probably don't know five people's number in our cell phone. And that's what I mean by has this supplemented or has this taken the place of me being able to critically think um, about remembering phone numbers of important relationships, right? And so I agree with everything Alexis said. I think if we don't teach people how to think with these devices in their hands, um, it doesn't it doesn't matter how much access they have. It just will become dangerous, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And uh-oh, sorry about that. And so it's a part of our present. It's going to be a part of our future. I think there are some aspects of it that's unhealthy, but I think there are some aspects of it that's healthy. Have to teach people how to focus on using it in a healthy way. The unhealthy ways, we got to teach people how to critically think about it.
I do this early childhood training where I actually talk about how early the codependency on social media starts for our children in this generation. And I just have our parents evaluate what the responses are when you take tablets and iPads away, or when that child gets home. If you don't immediately let them have access to that device, have you noticed what their attention or their energy is like? And then I ask us to notice that about ourselves, right? Even if you don't feel like you actively change your mood, do you feel like you cannot be without that phone? How do you feel if you leave that cell phone at home and you have to go make a delivery or go pick up or drop off your kid? Like, what are the feelings that arise from that? And I think that we have become so programmed with them that consciously we don't even think about, who am I without this thing attached to me?
Part of their identity.
Right.
It becomes part of your
Yeah,
identity.
yeah.
It becomes a codependent mechanism. And I've told Alexis for years that, like, I want a house phone so badly. And people giggle about it when I say it, but for me, one of the reasons is because I desire the ability to be able to turn this off, throw it away. One of the things I've adapted is turning my phone off at certain times of night, like letting it go sleep. And then I only have certain people that I allow to come through the line, and that has helped me out a lot. I also, like, I like TikTok. Okay, there's no doubt about that. I enjoy it. I'm a storyteller, so for me, I enjoy the storytelling component. I like listening to people. But when I have that app on my phone, I'm gonna sit up and listen to it. So I actually delete that app off my phone, and I have to go back and re-download it
Mm-hmm.
each time I want to use it. And so for me, that has taken me away from using it as much. It really stops me from posting as much. And frequently throughout the year, I also deactivate my Facebook account and things like that and go on a fast.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say for me, it wasn't until I noticed like this weird sense of codependency on it. And honestly, even that whenever I was trying to read long pieces of work and I was writing, I noticed that my attention span wasn't the same. And so I felt like I had to start detoxing myself. And I think that that even shows up in ways that we don't always notice when we start talking about our mental health, when we start talking about the anxiety and things that manifest itself, and hearing people say, well, I didn't always have anxiety. I'm not really sure where it came from. And so, I think that for me, that's one of the reasons that that question is so important, because I think we have unconsciously become so attached to this. And on the spot news, what's going on in our state, what's going on in our city, what's the latest political news, what's the latest viral post that's getting our attention to cause us to be alert. And sometimes I remember that if I wasn't at home back in the day at 6 o'clock, I just missed the news
That's it.
and life went
That's
on.
it. That's
You know
it.
what I'm saying? Life
That's
went
it.
on. And that is okay for you
Mm-hmm.
to miss things and for life to go on.
Mm-hmm.
So Did you guys have anything to say? Any thoughts about that? I just had to share that.
No, I'm in total agreement. That's why it is important to set those boundaries with yourself. We talk about setting boundaries with other people, but we essentially have to learn how to set boundaries with ourselves as well.
Absolutely.
That could be the harder thing to do, is to
Yes.
set boundaries with ourselves. And
Yes.
so when we start to set those boundaries, then we notice how we're contributing to, unintentionally as it may be, our, continuously being in a string of hypervigilance.
I love it.
We have
I love
such an onslaught of media that's coming at us. Excuse me, is contributing to our state of hypervigilance. And that in turn turns into the anxiety, right? Or the depression, because you've been, in a spiral. You feel like, oh, doom and gloom, but you're constantly subjecting yourself to the thing that is the cause.
I love it.
Mhm.
We are seeing growing concerns about burnout among educators, healthcare workers, activists, and community leaders. We've kind of talked about that a little bit, but the question is no longer just about what do we do to take care of ourselves, but what are some of the early warning signs that someone's mental health may be suffering from chronic stress and compassion fatigue? Because I feel like some of the issue is that people may not notice until they crash. But what are some things that we, as that community circle, as friends and family members, to people who work in service professions or politics, what are some things that we may want to be on the lookout when it comes to burnout and compassion fatigue?
Yeah, so I think like common symptoms like low hanging fruit, low fatigue, you're starting to forget things that you normally would remember, uh, irritation, agitation, um, struggles with focus and concentration. You probably more of a common term feel like you're kind of going through the motions. You lose kind of like your desire and passion for your work and for your assignment, and you're just finding it harder to be able to show up every day. Are usually signs. Um, and I think we talked about this earlier. There is. I think why people struggle with it so much is because there is this expectation that you'll just push through it, especially when it's compassion fatigue. You're usually talking about taking care of a loved one. And oftentimes when people in those situations, their caregiver doesn't have anyone else besides that person. And especially if you haven't learned how to navigate the system to get like stuff like home health or additional like formal supports and stuff like that, you can start taking on those undue burdens by yourself. So those are some of the things that just kind of come to top of mind.
Now, Alexis, what I wanted to kind of ask you regarding that was he said something about people, you know, kind of being short tempered or having mood swings. What do you say if you are dealing with a friend that you know works in this social services realm, that you know is out here doing political activism, you know this is a high season for them, and you notice that they are moody or snap at you? What do you recommend if you are in that support circle we were discussing earlier? What should a person do if you notice that you say something, you know, or they are just outside of their normal selves? What do you do? What should I how should I respond as the friend or family member to that person?
Right. I will first say I have been that person. Okay. So let me just
Me too.
let me self-disclose.
Man,
Let me self-disclose, because we are all in this together. I said that earlier. Okay. But what I have done and what I can appreciate that happened for me is that someone came to me in an empathetic way and said, I'm concerned about you. You're not showing up in the way that you usually show up. I don't see that big bright smile that I usually see. Uh, what's going on? Right. So they give the invitation, the person that's in that innermost circle, or even, at any other part of the circle of support, notices, and instead of them talking about it with someone else, they come directly to the source and they confront it, but they confront it in a way that leads with empathy, because that's so important. Because whenever we're leading with empathy, we feel seen and we feel heard. Everybody wants that. That everybody wants those two things. We want to feel seen, we want to feel heard, because whenever we feel seen and heard, that leads us to trust, gets us closer to it anyway, which is key in the mental health sort of dynamic or therapeutic alliance. So we feel like somebody, one of our coworkers, our loved ones, somebody a part of our circle of support is coming to us in that manner, we're more apt to receive it, right? And open to discuss the troubles or concerns or challenges that we've been navigating. And it's okay. It's okay for us to discuss it with that person. It's also okay for us to schedule a therapy appointment. It's okay. And that's something that in our community, we're just warming up to. I'm not going to say we don't do that, because I see more Black women, Black men, and I always tell them how proud I am, because I'm so proud.
We love bragging about it too. Mm-hmm.
We love bragging
about it. Yeah, we love being like, girl, I'm going to therapy, girl.
Yeah. And I congratulate people for making, because it's difficult. If I see you on the other side of me, that's likely not your first time trying to make this appointment. This is the first time I'm seeing you, or another therapist is seeing you, but that's not the first time you tried to make an appointment. So to circle back, leading with empathy, so that person can feel seen and heard and get closer to getting some interventions, whether it just be opening up more, or even, getting assistance with resource mobilization, or of course, scheduling an appointment. And you can help with that. As being a support person, you may not want to go inside of a therapy appointment with the person because maybe they have some things they don't want to share in front of you, but you can tag along, sit in the office, you can sit in the car, you can be of support any old way. And asking that question very directly is important. But what happens is, I think the ball is dropped because we don't always know what to do or say as the support system. So we don't ask. We feel like, ooh, I know they acting different, but I don't know. I don't know if I know what to do.
I feel like there also come times whenever we have to know when to just also give them space, give people space.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when we, know people closely in the kind of work that they do, we also feel like every day can be a normal day for us. Mm. And so sometimes you also have to know when to just give people space that they need without offense. Me and Alexis talk every single day. Okay, pretty much. We might miss a day here and there, but we talk pretty much every day. So when she made the joke about it, like, there are moments whenever I'm the same way too, right? As the hyper compassionate friend. So there are days when we both feel that way. But whenever I hear Dave and we're talking, so we always have these super intense conversations. Honey, if the conversation rating is 1 to 10, we're on like 9.8 each conversation, right? But so if she's like, well, girl, that just don't make no sense. And they ought to do something better because you know better. I say, that's right. Because today, right, is the day when she may have already given all of this compassion all day long to somebody. And just like there are days when if I'm, less than spunky with my developed answer, she just says, okay, girl, you right. Mm-hmm. Or she'll say, she's the straightforward one. Friend, you okay? You all right? And, so checking in with each other that way, but not ever forcing each other to step outside of how you feel in that present moment. And I think that that's very important because, when you work in a helping profession, you also have to be allowed space to feel how you feel in very real time, because it is heavy carrying the loads of others when you work in any type of service job. So I love what you all said about that. Dr. Butler, did you have any words?
Oh, no, I agree. No, I agree with both of y'all.
So we have 2 more, because y'all know one night we got on here and we were on here for over 2 hours. I don't know if you remember that, Dr. Butler. We had time that night. We were rolling. So I think we had Dr. What's you all's mentor name? I'm so sorry.
Andrew.
We had Dr. Andrews. Baby, it was a GSU mental health night.
Oh, I do remember. I do.
We were rolling all night.
You got the wrong folks together.
We were rolling that night, so we can keep this going, right? But I do recognize that you all have other responsibilities, and I want to make sure that I'm on time. And child, y'all know I'm gonna be begging for you to come back because I really want us to talk about holiday grief later on this year. So I'm gonna throw that out there. But for young people growing up in this era, both of you all are parents. Growing up in this era of social tension, violence, economic instability, and public scrutiny online, what can we all do? Parents, educators, social services workers, mentors, what can we be doing to help our children feel emotionally safe?
Well, one, I think everything starts at home. I think you have to help your children develop a firm identity before they ever step foot out of your home, because that identity is going to be the foundation for how they handle the pressures and struggles of life. And particularly if you're a person of color, you know, it's already disadvantageous. Whatever venture and endeavor that you have. So I think it starts at home. I think you have to educate your children. That's like I have teenagers. We homeschool our kids. One of the reasons that we homeschool our children is because we have an opportunity to talk about things they wouldn't talk about in the public school system. Like the formulation of your identity. Like, how do you view and deal with the social pressures in life? Like, what's your philosophy of life from a biblical lens? You know, where are you from? You know, what do you know about your ancestors and the path that they paved? So I think everything for me starts at home, and then I think you have to have, as a parent, and I think most of the parents will attest to this, you gotta have some sense of awareness and influence on your children's peer group. I think Black Lives Matter was proof to us that if adults don't get involved, that young people will join themselves to a vision and a cause and still forge ahead without the experience of adult participation. They may not have the experience, but they have the energy and the drive and the focus. And I think this was the first time in the Black community where a cause wasn't led by a sage or by somebody in our community that was an elder. And I think if we don't, as parents and adults, come out of our comfort zone and get acclimated
Yes.
with how the world works with these young people, we not only will be left behind, we will become antiquated. And these young people will forge their own peer groups and start answering and solving these problems without us, without the advantage of experience, which can be dangerous, but they're up for the challenge, right? So I know some parents that can't even use cell phones. Like, they can't get on social media. My kids, I have an app. I can see every single thing my kids do. Everything, every text, every email. Like, I tell the young people at my church, y'all not gonna leave me behind. If I got to put on some skinny jeans and put some a blue streak, y'all not leaving me. y'all not leaving me behind. You know, and I'll just end with this. And I think Alexis and Jamie, we got to put down our pride. and stop thinking that these young people have nothing to teach us.
Come on, come on, come on.
It's,
Don't come
it's
on,
arrogance and it's
come on.
pride.
That's a
And it
word.
was the reason why a lot of us rebelled as young people.
That's a word.
Right. So, um, yeah.
First of all, let me say something. You know, I always talk about spiritual words that you drop on me that have been very life changing since I met you and started following you online. And my friend knows what I'm talking about right now from a personal standpoint. As a mother that is navigating trying to raise a child that is revolutionary, and as a former educator that fully believed in my students being leaders, putting
Hmm.
them in that position,
Hmm.
training them to lead, speaking to their power, and asking them to teach me. And I say all of the time that if we do not put down our egos and step up to allow our kids to lead, and if we are not raising them in love, if we are not guiding them instead of trying to beat down their spirits, we're
That's
doing
it.
them a disservice.
That's
And
it.
these kids are different. They will abandon us and leave us behind, and they will not think twice about it.
That's
Quick,
right. That's
You
right.
understand what I mean? And
fast.
That's
they will
right.
play. They will abandon you. And it's so like everything that you said just now about how we have to stop acting like they don't have the ability to teach us things, how we
Yeah.
have to stop pretending like they are not leaders, and how we just have to approach trying to work with them differently. It's not going to be a perfect journey. It never will be. There are some classic things that we must keep, but there are some new things we must embrace in how we work with them. So I love that. I appreciate that. I think that's really awesome. And I think that because today's young people have evolved, that is one of the best ways that we can be supporters of their mental health. I'm gonna pass that question on to you as well, Alexis. How do you think we can help our children feel emotionally safe and supported, especially in this era?
Yeah, I really don't have a great deal to add. That was nail on the head what Dr. Butler just stated or answered. But what I will say is to to actually create emotional safety for our children, we have to be in a state of awareness. Just to
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
piggyback off, we have to be in a state of awareness because when we talk about our kids have come to teach us something, we can learn from them. I have said many times, my twins for sure, they came here to teach me some stuff because
Yes,
it
sir.
it forced me to come out of what I wanted for them and to recognize what they came here to be, what God designed them to be in this, in this era, right? And I had to step back. So I had to come into awareness of what am I projecting onto them and how I want them to show up. And then I'm not speaking to their power and how they know
Exactly.
intuitively that they
Mhm.
are supposed to be showing up in this world, right? How am I helping them to strengthen that? So that caused me to come into awareness so that they could feel more emotionally safe with me so that I could see what the gifts were or are that they have so that they can actually come into fruition and really be honed, right? And so without that, how am I going to show up for them as the parent that I need to be for them?
And
How am I
we
going to do that?
okay, I'm sorry.
Oh no,
I'm
that's it.
sorry. And we have to speak. I love when you said knowing what their gifts are because I always say that we have to speak directly into what our kids' capabilities are. And so if
Mhm,
we are only trying to raise them to fit into the box that we've assigned to them, there's no way we can speak to what the power of their potential is.
mhm,
I used to say this as an educator. My goal is not to teach a child how to think, but to equip them with the skills to do it. My goal is
mhm,
not to teach them how to define a leader, but to give them the skills to forge their own path as one. And so if
mhm,
I'm trying to tell them what their identity
Mm.
is, then I'm not giving them the skills to develop their own journey, to
mhm,
develop their own identity, to
mhm.
honestly fulfill exactly who God is calling them to be. I shouldn't
Right.
be dictating to my child what that identity is. I should, in fact, be trying to show them who God is so that they can understand what their identity is. And then my goal is to equip them to survive. I used to
Mhm,
always say that one of the biggest errors that we had in teaching was teaching a kid the content, but not teaching our kids the skills. When I give
mhm,
you the skill, you can apply it to anything. But if I teach you the content, it only goes to the limit of whatever subject I've taught you.
mhm,
So when you get outside of that subject, When you get outside of the grade level, then you've already hit the ceiling for your level of knowledge. But if I give you the skills, right, you can take those skills and you apply them over and over. You build on them, you use them no matter what level you're on. If I teach you what reading comprehension skills are, whether you're in first grade or 12th grade, those same skills still work. But if I
Transferable.
only teach you how to teach on a read on a first grade level, when you get to third grade, you don't know those words because I didn't teach you skills. I taught you how to read words. And so I love it. I love what, y'all got me so excited about that because it's so important when we start talking about what it looks like to help our kids feel emotionally safe and supported. So this is our
Jamie,
last.
can I add something else real quick too?
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
just want to say that question is so important. This is a pivotal time to do it with our young people too. There's a shift that's taking place. I don't know if our community in a whole has noticed it. Like during the civil rights movement, they were able to get a lot accomplished. They didn't have a lot of money, but they were always surrounded with a vision, right? But they just didn't have the resources, but they could still move things along because they let the young people lead, and it was always around a collective vision. I think, in some sense, we've lost the vision because a lot of us are busy surviving, and then a lot of people didn't grow up with stuff, so we're enjoying the fruits of our labor. So you can kind of lose your vision orientation. But if we start raising these young people to be visionaries, like at our church, like the young people, like 80% of what we do in our ministry is ran by young people. Like our adults know to get out the way. But if you train them to be visionaries, they can really start moving things because now they have the money. This is the most money Black folks have ever had.
Yeah.
Entertainment, sports, medicine, but we just haven't given them a vision to focus around. But if we start raising up, a couple hundred young African Americans and say, okay, this is the vision, y'all get behind this, and now we got the resources for it. I think we'll start seeing a lot of things change faster than you and I were able to do it. We just gotta believe in them, though. Like
Yeah.
they gotta know we really believe in you, and we're willing to give everything we have to get behind you. They just gotta know that.
What you
Yeah.
just said, Dr. Butler, I think that was before you came on, but we were talking about this sort of need now to come back into collective community
Mm,
at this point, right? Because
agreed.
in Western society, we have been conditioned and socialized to be very individualistic, which is in line
Right,
with
right, right,
capitalism,
right,
right?
right, right, right.
So we've all moved away from not all of us, but many of us have moved away at some point from our communities, right?
Black flight.
That's right, right? Because we had to. We
Yeah.
had to be able to get a job, be able to
Yeah.
survive, go to school, right? And so now I believe that this aligns with what you're saying. It's time to reconnect with our community so that that vision can be realized, if that makes sense.
It does.
So many of us don't have that. We have shifted our focus from an individualized vision for my small nuclear family, right? Which is good, but it has steered us away from the collective vision that you're talking about that was happening during the civil rights movement that got us the traction that we
Mm,
needed,
mm,
change that
mm-hmm.
we ultimately saw.
After we had this most recent election, there was a conversation piece I shared in. And even a few years ago, whenever the vision for just doing these community building workshops, these cohort programs, I noticed that there was a downturn before we officially heard of the downturn. There was a shift before we saw the official shift. There was a change before there was a definition attached to the change. And as you guys said before, from a collective standpoint, we were so kind of tired of in our own hubs that we really felt like things were good, right?
Right.
I'm good over here.
Me and my four.
That's
Right.
it.
Even in that respect, though, there were people who were getting left behind. There were children who were going unserved. There were schools that were struggling because they didn't have enough resources. There were families that were still struggling with the intergenerational. And what this present moment, in my opinion, shows us is that there is a collective space in which we will have to operate. We eventually have to be brought back to that space when we lose sight of what the collective community must look like. We eventually will be brought back to the communal space where we see again that when the least of us is struggling, then the quote unquote most of us will as well.
Mm.
And so unfortunately for us in this season, it's a big shakeup that we honestly didn't anticipate happening again, but we see it from the loss of jobs to what we see going on with our state to and here's the thing. Some of it looks like just community that's black community, but some of it looks like our small towns and small cities as well. Because what happens in that respect is when there's a shift felt, it impacts everybody. No matter how we try to say or think or feel or believe, and we're sitting there right now in real time, no matter how we try to believe that it impacts one person and it will not impact us, at some point it will.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we start talking about those communal spaces that you all are speaking on, I think that we never did not see how important it was, but we had gotten into a space where it looks good for me. I've evolved outside of poverty. I've been able to evolve to a better neighborhood. I've been able to get my degree. And so we felt this sense of disconnect from those who had not arrived in that place yet.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, we get brought back to that leveling ground. Because for a long time, it was no matter how much we said we could change in one any day, it could be anybody, right? It did not get real to us until it started to look like any day it was anybody. It was somebody we know. It was somebody we worked with. It was somebody in our family. It literally had to be so drastic that we actually have seen and felt that in real time. So I think that I wanted to kind of sit with that for a minute because I think the capacity of what you guys have said in this moment about us giving that leadership to our young people and then the community building aspect, I think we have to really sit with that because we cannot continue to be in this space where we just kind of think like it hasn't gotten to me yet. It's here.
Mm-hmm.
It's here.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it look like whether it's showing up in my internet, my black community circle, my local community circle, my professional work community circle? Like what does it have to look like for us to improve the nature of that community and not wait until it's me directly, not and wait until it's my kid directly, not wait until it's my parents directly. It's the moment is now.
Mm-hmm.
There's an old African proverb. It says, the person that's left behind will burn down a village just to feel its warmth.
Mm. Mm.
It's true.
Mm.
It's true. It's true.
Mm.
It's true. That's good. That's good. And I think that leans into saying so in order to try to avoid a person burning the village down, then we must all come together and interlock and support
Mm-hmm.
and be there for each other.
Can't leave them behind.
Can't leave them behind.
Yeah, yeah.
I
For
like
those
that.
who may be watching online, there's a powerful book called Reclaiming the Village. It talks about our conversation in ways that we can go back to a communal perspective because that's how we are. We're communal in nature. We're village oriented in nature. Matter of fact, I might have it on my bookshelf.
And I'm gonna write that down because
Yeah, I need to
I,
write that down.
I did a workshop this year. I was able to launch. I actually designed this program a few years ago for a school district called Restoring the Power of the Village. And the whole mindset is around us reestablishing the art of integrated community in our schools. So the work that I do is not only around parental engagement, but around educator engagement as well. And how do we strengthen all those relationships? So we're actually building a community of engagement for our children. That is
Mm.
the whole premise of the work that I've been doing in the consulting realm.
Amen.
Thank you. We launched Restoring the Power of the Village this past year with a mission to actually integrate our churches into it and talk about how we can implement strategic educational practices and literacy strategies into our church, our church realm. So, Vacation Bible School. How can I put Vago maps and vocabulary charts into Vacation Bible School? How can I implement literacy strategies? How can I also implement a natural flow for educational value back into my church system? So not where
Hmm.
we're just recognizing students and their positive performance, but we're actually integrating the culture of education into our church climate. So we are
Mm.
strengthening that relationship again. So
Mm.
I when you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I just had to share because I had the chance to finally kick off Restoring the Power of the Village this year to work with a community. And I truly believe that until we operate as a communal space, especially in education, we will not really be able to see kids thrive the way that they need to, especially in eras of uncertainty where we see funding strip, resources strip, all these things is not just about the educational aspects, but about that support resource, about that mental health aspect, about the
Mm.
emotional needs of kids, so that when we start talking about what it looks like for them to really succeed, they actually have most of the things that they need to be able to function each day. And we
Hmm.
as a community have been able to provide and model that for them. So I really look forward to that Reclaiming the Village book because I think it's going to be an amazing resource to even strengthen Restoring the Power of the Village some more. I like it.
Hmm.
Well, you text me an address. I'm gonna sew it into you. I'm gonna send it to you.
Oh my gosh, I sure will.
All
I
right,
Thank
got
great.
you.
you.
I
I'm
got you.
excited. I can't wait. So this is my final question for you all, and then I'll let you close out with what you have to say. So during this time, what we've already talked about from social justice to political work to we even talked about our churches a little bit. We talked about education. We talked about really all forms of service professional communities. What does it look like to have a healthy coping plan so that we can avoid being drained, being discouraged, and being fearful? So, what is your recommendation for a healthy coping plan?
So I think we talked about this earlier, Jamie, when we were discussing what does self-care look like, and we talked about it being a practice. And so not just as Dr. Butler reiterated, it's not just going to get your hair done, getting your nails done, going, on a girls trip, guys trip. It is actually committing yourself daily to the practice of you changing the pathways that you're going down or that you're subscribing to. And so that takes a commitment. So making small promises to yourself every day. I'm going to wake up at a certain time and I'm going to pray. I'm going to meditate.
Mm.
I'm going to journal. I'm going to become curious about why these thoughts keep on coming up for me. Why am I continuing to become triggered by these things? I'm going to move my body because we talked about as Black people in our community, everybody needs movement, but the way that we calm and regulate is very centered around movement, right? So dance and swaying and singing and really making sure that we're intentional with those types of practices, even if it's a worship practice that you have at home, even outside of going into your church. So I would say making sure that you have that practice, and it doesn't have to be all of the things. One or two of the things that
Yeah,
you are committing to is the goal.
I love it.
So that's what I would say.
You don't have to have all of the things, but at least one or two of those things that you
Hmm.
are committing to. I like that.
Hmm.
Dr. Butler.
Yeah, just to add to what Alexis said. So I wish I was on my laptop. I would share my screen, but I developed an acronym about 10 years ago. It's called SEEDS, SEEDS. It's just a way to remember ways that you can practice self-care. But the first S is spirituality, and Alexis alluded to that. Like everything starts there. You got to be grounded in your spiritual life, whether that's prayer, meditation, reading up the Word of God, fellowship, and servanthood. The second E is efforts. I think you have to give yourself a fighting chance every day by being strategic with your day. If your brain does not have an agenda, it does not have strategy or plan for your day, it can become disorganized and fight against you. So giving your day order helps you mentally. It releases all of those neurochemicals that are helpful to us, like serotonin, norepinephrine, and fights against cortisol that's released from having a chaotic schedule. The third E is exercise. A body in motion stays in motion. We just know all of the healthy chemicals that are released when you move. God knew what he was talking about when he says that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. We even see that when people exercise, when they clap their hands, there's an electromagnetic pulse that sends up your arm to your brain, to your heart, that makes you feel good. That's why he says, clap your hands, all ye people. You know, those things are helpful. The D is diet. You are what you eat. Then the S is sleep. Just having a good sleep routine is super important. Because if you don't have good sleep, it throws off your circadian rhythm and you'll just struggle with your emotions. Did we lose Jamie? Okay,
I think she's
she's back.
back. Yeah.
So I just think those 5 things are just starter things that you can do on a base level for anybody starting with any type of self-care plan. And then along with the things that Alexis mentioned, I love the commitment part. I never thought about that too. To your plan is super important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to first tell you all thank you so much for taking time to talk tonight, especially because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I always feel it's important not only that we have this conversation here, but that we keep it going throughout the year. And sometimes it's taking off those barriers and having kind of like this free flowing conversation, in my opinion, encourages people to sit and think about whether they need to find a therapist or counselor so that they can pursue this support more intimately. And so for those who have said to yourselves, oh my gosh, I think I need to see a therapist, you can reach out to Alexis. You can DM me. You can reach out to Dr. Butler, or you can DM me, and I'll put you in contact with them to see if they have openings to accept clients. And just understanding that you are not alone in deciding to pursue a healthier mental health journey, which, in my belief, means that physically you become healthier as well. And that this conversation today is not because people feel they are these elevated professionals, but because we are part of that element that is what community conversation, right? That says in this space, we hope to fill in the gap for you. We hope to stand in alignment with you. We hope to pour into you something, and I hope that you would pour that into someone else. Or if you see us, you can pour that back in, because that's the art of how community work, right? Gives and receives, right? And so we are very thankful for everyone who has tuned in today. I thank you so much to the amazing therapists and all of your insight. I thank you all for committing yourselves to this work for so many years, because it is not an easy journey. And I always think about the amount of ongoing learning you have to do, and
Mm.
really the amount of care for your family, yourself, and then everybody else who shows up in that space with you. And you all never know who or what you're going to get on the other end of that call. So thank you all so much for the work that you do. Did you have any final words that either of you would like to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to leave everybody with uh, we're all in this together. And so when you meet someone, whether it is, out on the street, whenever you are just going shopping, going about your day, please meet them with compassion, meet them with empathy, because you never know what they're going through. I know a lot of people say that, but it is so true. Your smile might be the thing that brightens their day or lightens their load. So lead with empathy and compassion in all your interactions, or try your best to.
Hey man, I would just say you never know what people are going through. So always check on your strongest friend.
That's good.
I love it. And I want to say that I have launched a book called Growing Together.
Come on
I
here.
know that's right. Come on.
Shameless plug.
That's right.
It's been about a month now since I launched Growing Together, and some of you guys have seen previews of it online, which is a family workbook that is centered on helping families reclaim their time and create memories together, understand how to slow down, and really just evaluate what your mission is for your family and figuring out how you create that together. It has charts, planners, ideas. It has certificates to celebrate your moves, and even ideas on how you can build things together with your family that are low cost and free. And then the other one is our Educator Wellness Journal, which has been getting some tremendous support from everyone. Very excited about this. Cultivated the vision for this back during the pandemic. So when we talk about things coming around full circle, this is a full circle moment for me. I did the sketch then, but honestly, during that time, honestly felt very nervous about pursuing something like this. But the work that I've been doing over the years, advocating for educator wellness, showing up for schools, hosting teacher workshops that center the wellness of our teachers and their own pathways and journeys, inspired this 52-week journal, which does water check-ins, emotional check-ins, exercise check-ins. It gives you a place to write about your week and reflect on the successes and failures. And it also has social, emotional, learning-based activities for you to participate in to encourage educators to create time for yourself. So just a reminder, you all, that we are now opening up slots for you to potentially advertise your business. And with more than 10,000 people across my network as Jamie Mays, the author, the founder of the Healing Project, and the owner of Jamie Mays Educational Consulting, you could potentially help your business connect with several people that your market has not been able to reach before. So please, if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. And we are very thankful for our amazing guests tonight. Thankful for everything that they have shared with us and their love and passion for the community. We look forward to talking to you all again in the future. Take care of yourselves and good night.